State Circle is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
A school shooting in southern Maryland.
You've got to take action.
Local school boards running out of snow days.
So I don't see taking spring break away.
And should the state limit gay conversion therapy?
Conversion therapy implies that there's something wrong with a child.
Connecting Marylanders to their government. This is State Circle.
Good evening. The big story around State Circle this week is tragedy in southern Maryland. One student fatally injured, another wounded in a shooting just days before the National March on Washington to protest school violence. Charles Robinson reports that Maryland lawmakers are focused on classroom safety.
We had a horrible school shooting located in St. Mary's County this morning.
Members were shocked that the wave of school shootings made its way to a Maryland high school. The shooting at Great Mills High School left the shooter dead and a pair of students shot. It made several pieces of legislation become more urgent.
We've got to take action. We've got one of the most aggressive school safety plans in America that we introduced several weeks ago as emergency legislation in Annapolis, and the legislature's failed to take action on it.
House Bill 1816 is an emergency bill. It's called the Safe Schools Act of 2018. Under the bill, each local school system will have to develop a school emergency plan. There would also be an increase in funding for the Maryland Center for School Safety, which is a clearinghouse for threats. It would provide $10 million annually for the Safe Schools Fund, which would be used to buy cameras and harden school doors. The governor's ideas were heard in the House Ways and Means Committee this week. The Senate has taken a different approach, working with the governor on various pieces of legislation, compromising and getting it to the floor.
The governor's crime bill has been modified by the Senate, so now it goes to the House Judiciary. It won't be what the governor exactly wanted, but it will be what the legislative body can pass. In Annapolis, I'm Charles Robinson for State Circle.
This week's spring snowstorm led to yet another day off from school for thousands of Maryland students. Now many school districts are adjusting their calendars as they try to meet the state's 180-day academic requirement. Some districts are shortening spring break or extending the school year. The Senate passed a measure to give school boards authority to extend the year by 5 days without the approval of the State Board of Education.
Really troubling to families, and especially if you're going to make a nice trip for that 1 week, you make those arrangements far in advance. You put a lot of money into it, a lot of them. So I don't see taking spring break away. I just don't think that'll fly with the families. Family time's important.
Among the major school districts, Montgomery County has decided to extend the school year to June 15th, and Prince George's County is shortening their spring break by 2 days. Legislation to limit gay conversion therapy is advancing in the state Senate. The bill approved by a Senate committee is set for a floor vote next week. Nancy Amata has more.
There is no therapy, there is nothing that can be done that changes someone's innate sexual orientation or gender identity.
Senator Richard Madaleno says gay conversion therapy, or reparative therapy as it's sometimes known, where attempts are made to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity, is inhumane and should be outlawed for minors. He's sponsoring a bill which would ban any licensed counselors or medical health practitioners from subjecting anyone under 18 years old to this practice that he likens to mental and in some cases physical abuse.
For so many of us, for me, for other people who are backing this bill, it's about saying no, this practice is torture for a child, for a minor, and it needs to be prohibited.
Conversion therapy implies that there's something wrong with a child who is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning. And we in Maryland don't believe that.
Gay conversion therapy has been universally discredited by the American Psychological Association and most medical and mental health organizations. Even so, some lawmakers say passing this bill might be a slippery slippery slope as it relates to religious counselors and their beliefs.
If a kid comes to a Christian or a Muslim counselor and says, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim and my faith says this is wrong, but I'm having these confusing feelings, and then that counselor tries to help them process those feelings and maybe shares with them out of the Bible or out of the Quran or other Muslim books or whatever, what ends up happening? Does that person, are they guilty of conversion therapy because they're trying to help the kid figure out how they feel?
Senator Justin Reedy contends,
I think we have to be really careful when we look at doing something that all of a sudden sets up in law how professional bodies will judge the action of their members.
Bill sponsors say the bill does not restrict any protected First Amendment speech and does not apply to clergy or religious advisors who are not acting in accordance to a state-issued professional license. Consequences for violating the gay conversion therapy ban would include discipline by their profession's governing bodies or the loss of their license. I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
Well, it looks like the money train is headed for Washington's metro system. State lawmakers are moving ahead with a plan for Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia to all contribute additional money on an ongoing basis. Maryland's share has been increased to $167 million from an original offer of $150 million from Governor Hogan. Metro plans to address safety lapses and replace equipment. The new $1.3 trillion federal spending plan does include funding for the Chesapeake Bay cleanup. The Trump administration's budget had eliminated the money, but the bill approved by the House and Senate and signed today by the president does include $73 million in Bay funding and millions more for land conservation in the Bay watershed. Our newsmaker this week is Major General Linda Singh, the Adjutant General of the Maryland National Guard. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Good to see you. The governor has named you to chair a commission on the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. How do you see that mission?
Well, I think that it's really important for us to continue to think about all of the women that came before us, and not just women, but also men, those shoulders that we've stood on. And so this allows me the opportunity to help educate some of our young individuals, but really help to bring back and celebrate all the progress that we've made and to really celebrate the lives of all of the individuals that has some part in where we are today, the progress. I wouldn't even be in the military if it wasn't for some of what these women have done and what some of the men have done. So to me, it's extremely important.
Not to mention being the first woman to command the Maryland Guard. When you think back about the 19th Amendment, and it's hard from 2018 to imagine that there was even a debate about this, but certainly there was. How do you see the impact in terms of women's suffrage and beyond that?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, we have made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot further to go. And when I think about where things are today, it's extremely important for us to embrace the impact that women have on our overall lives. And it starts from very small, when you start with your mother and how they actually raise us and bring us into the world. And then when you think about the model, the role model that they set for us, and then other women. And so when I think about what the 19th Amendment really means, it's really getting beyond the counting the numbers, but it's about celebrating and being thankful. But then it's also, for us, someone like myself, being able to turn the leads over to someone more junior, looking at that future generation. And how are they going to be leaders much into the future will be very different than what we are in terms of leaders today.
What kind of commemoration is this commission working on? Because when I take a quick look back at history, I believe that Maryland was not exactly in the forefront, certainly on approving the constitutional amendment. So what's on the table in terms of how this will be commemorated? And the anniversary, I think, is 2020.
That's correct. So the anniversary is 2020, so we're looking at having a number of events leading up to that within Maryland that highlights all of the important places. So we'll be putting out markers, roadside markers, that will actually highlight important places that took place during the 19th Amendment. And even though Maryland wasn't necessarily one of the first states that signed, they were very, very active during that time frame. And so we want to highlight our history there. And when we think about the events, we have an event coming up on March 3rd in Hyattsville, which is an extremely important one, where we're going to be placing a marker in the city of Hyattsville and kind of celebrating as a kickoff event right before International Women's Day. And then if I was to think about where we go from there, it's having more of those events, it's having more educational events, and then leading up to what I would like to see a very large international, I say an international, but looking at with partnering with D.C., Pennsylvania, and some of the other states that were very key on the eastern border of what happened during the 19th Amendment, for us to kind of partner and really have a very big march that would lead up to that. And it's really a celebration march. And I would say it's not just marching, but it's having educational events where we could really look at what does it mean to be a woman leader in today's environment? What will it mean for the future generation? Because it's great to be able to look at the past, but what's important is what do we as women leaders do today to actually help to set up that future generation for success?
From a personal standpoint, and many people know your personal story, great success, obviously in the military, but also in the corporate world after a difficult start in life. When you talk to young people under your command, particularly women, what's your message in general and in the context of service in the Guard?
Well, I mean, my message to women is very similar to my message to men, is that you got to be competent. You have to be confident in your skills and ability. You have to show up every single day. Because regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, if you don't show up every single day, then you're not going to achieve the level of success. And so to me, getting those messages across is extremely important, but also valuing diversity. And it's more than just diversity of how someone looks. It's valuing the diversity of their capabilities and the fact that just because they're different than you are does not make them any less of a capable leader. And so it's really stressing that and stressing how we can be teaming partners to be able to deliver on a solution. And those are the types of things that I focus in on.
Lastly, for 2018 status of the Maryland National Guard, the Maryland Air Guard, what are the priorities for this year?
So our priorities, as always, continues to be readiness. We have a number of exercises coming up this year where we're focusing in on our homeland mission as well as our deployment type missions that we have coming up. And so individual readiness is our first and most important priority. And so part of my responsibility is to ensure that my leadership understands that we have to have every single soldier and airman ready. As you can see, last year was very challenging for a number of states. We've had very unusual weather patterns. And so the National Guard responds a lot on those fronts. And so we really do need to be there for our citizens to make sure that we are personally and individually ready.
Major General Linda Singh, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
And still ahead, the Political Roundtable. We'll be right back.
Got an unused vehicle going nowhere? Donate it to the one place that can take you any place. Visit mpt.org/vehicles and support the programs you love on MPT.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
What happens in Japan and Asia matters to me. With NHK World's newsroom in Tokyo, I get the news live from Japan right at the start of my day.
New ideas come out of Asia all the time. NHK Newsline reports on business, technology, and world events from Tokyo to Bangkok.
once in the morning gives me a heads up on the competition.
Every hour on the hour. The news I want from Asia.
Watch NHK World now on Comcast Channel 268 and Verizon Channel 480.
Are you turning 70 and a half this year? If so, you generally have to start spending down your retirement account. Even the minimum distribution can place you in a sticky situation. Luckily, you can now use your IRA to make tax-free gifts. Gifts up to $100,000 will never count as income, but always make a difference. That's icing on the cake.
Make your gift for this year before December 31st. Visit mpt.org/support.
This is a box that shows you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, any place. Break out of the box with PBS.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
We are the curious.
Wow!
The adventurous.
Those venturing out for the first time.
And those who've never lost our sense of wonder.
Whoa. Seen this?
We are the hungry.
The strong. I must be the greatest.
The joyful.
A happy little cloud. We believe there is always more we can uncover.
More we can explore.
We believe in the capacity for goodness.
And the potential for greatness.
The torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
PBS.
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 We have been profiling the Democrats running for governor this year. Charles Robinson spoke with State Senator Richard Madaleno.
My name is Rich Madaleno. I'm currently a state senator, and I'm running for governor. In this field of the Democratic candidates, no one has my level of experience and my accomplishments at the state level. As a legislator, I've been here as part of the decisions over the last 16 years. I understand state government. I was a state employee at one time. I have an appreciation for what state government does, who works for state government. I respect the workers that come in every day and in some cases risk their lives on our behalf. I have that in-depth experience that no one else in this field has. My running mate, LaWanda Jenkins, was a member of Governor O'Malley's cabinet, has 17 years experience in the executive branch. The two of us have unparalleled experience at the state government level. I think clearly what I offer is someone who has the skills of an insider, but the soul of an outsider. And when you look at my resume, I mean, people told me early on I had no chance of ever winning in the legislature. People told me to stay in the closet if I wanted any chance for success in elected office. I needed to stay in the closet. I have charted my own territory, my own course as a legislator, as an elected official, to get things done. If you're interested in having someone who can get the job done from day one, you're wanting someone who can get us back on the right track in the state of Maryland from day one, you need look no further than Rich Madaleno and LaWanda Jenkins. Because of our in-depth experience, our track record of accomplishments at the state level, our relationships with the people down here. I mean, people tend to forget this is the state government that is filled with people. People function on trust, on relationships. That's what I have down here. We wonder why someone has a hard time becoming governor or someone has a hard time filling an executive office when they're brought in from the outside and they have no relationships with the people around them. People don't know when you're sitting at the table and it's time to negotiate to get something done, you're sitting with a stranger. With me, with LaWanda, that's not going to be the case. We have the ability to go in, because we've been working with these people, we have the ability to go in to make the deals that need to happen in order to move our state forward. If you're looking for someone who is going to move Maryland forward from day one, I'm that candidate.
For the political roundtable this week, Charles Robinson joined by Steve Lash of the Daily Record. Steve, next week, the eyes of political Maryland relocate from the State House to the Supreme Court. What's happening?
Yes, on Wednesday, Attorney General Brian Fosh, well, actually Solicitor General Stephen Sullivan will argue arguing for Attorney General Fosh, will argue in defense of the 6th Congressional District, which Republican voters are challenging as an unconstitutional gerrymander.
So interesting, it's not the 3rd Congressional District, which is the one that looks so incredibly disjointed. That's not what this case is about.
You're talking about that salamander?
Exactly.
You're talking about that salamander that everybody keeps talking about? Steve, this is probably one of those cases where whatever side you're on, somebody's going to lose.
Well, it's the 6th Congressional District, the one held now by John Delaney, who's not running for election. He wants to run for president. But generally, the argument is that the Democratic-run General Assembly redrew that district with the express purpose in 2011 to get Roscoe Bartlett, a Republican, out of office. And the Republican voters are saying that was done that this retaliatory action by the General Assembly violated the First Amendment right to political association. And the Supreme Court has taken up the case. And it's interesting because Attorney General Fosh is arguing in favor of the constitutionality of the district, but Republican Governor Larry Hogan has filed an amicus brief opposing the constitutionality of the district.
And you would think, I mean, the Supreme Court tends to rule later into the spring, so would likely not be in time to affect this year's election cycle.
It will not. It will not affect. Presumably, will not affect the election cycle. The decision is going to come down probably the end of June, and probably be more prospective. That'll be one of these. If they do strike it down or take action to in any way call for change, it would probably be one of those like with the school desegregation cases in the 1950s. Let's do it with all deliberate speed. We'll allow someone. We'll allow it. Give the legislature, give the states time to react to the court's decision.
And Steve, I think the most interesting part is why the governor is weighing in. He wants to take the authority to draw lines away from the legislative body and essentially give it to an unbiased group to draw the new lines.
Right, the call for an independent commission, the idea that take politics out of the legislative redrawing process, which a lot of states who have taken the side of the Maryland Attorney General Brian Fosh have argued that, well, it is inherently a political process, that it's designed to be a political process, that that the congressional district redrawing is left to the legislatures and not the courts.
Charles, 2 weeks to go, amazingly.
How the court eventually rules.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. 2 weeks ago, I know. That's all we got left.
And where do we stand? So we had crossover day, a lot of legislation, a record amount of legislation in the hopper this year. Where do we stand heading into the last 2 weeks?
Well, we got the budget that's coming to the House, and they will take that up on Monday. What's going to be very interesting is we will get a budget out of this session, but a lot of it has a lot of moving parts as it relates to where some of the money is coming. Understand this, there is a bill that's in the House Ways and Means Committee that is going to look at taking some of the casino money, putting it in a lockbox, and then using it to add to additional monies for both school construction and as well as providing money to the various jurisdictions. But Steve, what I find fascinating here is that no one's against this, but they don't know how to split up all the dollars. Understand, there are going to be a lot of dollars that's just going to be floating out there.
Right, and casino money historically, because the whole argument for the casino money was basically back then was to fund schools, not to be put in a general fund. So certainly a lot of the counties are saying, no, this should go for school construction and school activities.
And you know, when the final gun on the legislative session is sounded just over 2 weeks from now, the focus shifts immediately to politics and campaigning. We've been talking, Charles, you talked to Senator Madaleno about his campaign this week. We're starting to see more endorsements on the Democratic side in this very crowded field running for governor.
Yes, one of the more nuanced endorsements today came from California Senator Kamala Harris. She just endorsed Ben Jealous, who was also endorsed by Cory Booker. So he now has two senators endorsing, the United States Senator endorses his campaign. But I think probably the biggest thing that happened today was an ad that came out for Chris Varishna. She is the only woman who is running for governor of the state of Maryland. And it really emphasizes the fact that she's the only female in the race. A lot of people have pointed to the fact that there is a picture of her breastfeeding her child, and that has a tendency. What do you do as a male candidate? You can't really trump that, can you?
It's an interesting position where you have one woman in that field, and you wonder about what turnout's going to be like in a Democratic primary in June. And Charles, we just have a couple of seconds.
Well, very simply, I think that a lot of Democrats believe this is the Democratic year because of the president. Understand this, that President Trump lost this state by several percentage points, and they're banking on, the Democrats at least, are banking on this idea. But guess what? Larry Hogan is still the most popular politician in the state.
Yes, and polls are showing that.
You can read Steve Lash's work in the Daily Record, thedailyrecord.com. Gentlemen, thank you. Have a great weekend. Monday on Direct Connection, protecting your privacy online. Should we worry about what Facebook knows about us? Join us for that Monday. Thanks for watching State Circle. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.
TV Worth Watching is supported by the members of MPT and by
Chimes continues to build on its 70-year legacy of providing services to people with a wide range of disabilities in Maryland and beyond. Chimes employs the latest evidence-based techniques to provide families and individuals with independence, fulfillment, and opportunity.
Freedom Car, offering transportation service with professional drivers to individuals, corporations, nonprofits, colleges, and universities in Maryland since 1991. The new fleet includes a wheelchair-accessible van. Learn more at freedomcar.net/MPT.
Hi, I'm John Davis, and I'm here with Devin Wilson with tips for keeping you safe on the road. Now, Devin, what should motorists do when they're approaching a roadside emergency?
Well, John, the move over law requires drivers on